if you got a grizzly bear and you spot him and he's sort of checking you out, you want to make yourself real big, right? Because a grizzly bear is going to be less likely to attack something that's real big and scary. So you see a grizzly bear, the first thing you want to do, eye contact. Give it eye contact, stare it down. Get big, eye contact, get big. He starts charging, you charge right back. Now if that's a male bear, you drop to one knee, bam, paralyzer to the chode. That's gonna drop him. Right there, you get a paralyzer to the chode right in there, bam, that's gonna drop him.
That was the great Hank Patterson talking about how he deals with grizzly bears. Let's see what this guy really is made of today. This is episode 58 of the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. I wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple of our new patrons, Chris and Randy. Booyah! Nice work on helping out with the show and supporting the show. If you want to head over to Patreon, wetflyswing.com/Patreon to get bonus content, including the new Steelhead book. In today's episode, I interview Hank Patterson, the self-proclaimed greatest fly fishing guide in the world. We talk about the menage a trois midge, the problems with nymphing, and the single greatest problem to mankind right now. We find out about being fly curious, what's funny enough, and his plans for the upcoming years. Don't miss this as both Hank and I go in and out of character in this truly unique show. Try to guess who's present, what's true, and what's BS. Before we jump into the show today, I wanted to see if you can fill out a quick survey. Go to wetflyswing.com/survey2 to take the 30-second survey. Or you can just click into the show notes for this episode and click on the link at the top to take this super short survey. I wanted to thank you for doing this. I announced this survey a while back, but made a little boo-boo. I redirected to an older survey I had going. So the info was helpful, but it was not the current survey. So I appreciate it if you can take this one. It should take less than 30 seconds. There's just a few questions there. That'd be awesome. Again, go to wetflyswing.com/survey2. That's SURVEY and the number 2, or click on the link in the show notes for this episode at the top of the page. This will help me to understand better who's listening and help me serve you and everyone out there better. Thanks again. So, without further ado, here's Hank Patterson.
How's it going, Hank?
It's going really good. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably an exceptional honor for you to be talking to me today. So congratulations.
It is and it isn't. I've heard you on some things, and it's pretty funny because I remember the first time I listened to you, I literally turned off the podcast because I was just like, who is this guy? And it was just this kind of funny thing because when I picked up here, I picked up the podcast again, and it was the Orvis one, and I was about midway through, so I listened to the rest of it. But I imagine you get some of that with people. Do you get a little bit of blowback from some not only positive but lots of negative stuff?
Nobody I care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you get on. I don't read too many comments. There's people out there that certainly don't like me, and I can live with that. Just because there's it's subjective, right? And so if you watch anybody's videos, there's websites dedicated to how much people hate The GodFather, and which is widely considered one of the greatest films of all time. And so I figure if there's millions of people that hate one of the greatest movies of all time, I can live with some people not liking me.
There you go. Okay. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how you got into fly fishing, because you are you still like the self-proclaimed greatest guide in the world? Is that kind of your little your stick?
That's I don't call it a shtick, but I got into fly fishing. It depends on which video you watch. The story tends to change. But I've been fly fishing probably for 20 some years. I was sort of on a vision quest in the mountains. I found a bunch of fly fishing stuff had been abandoned. This guy abandoned his boots and his waders and his flies and his vest and everything right outside of his tent about 2 a.m. And I was pretty drunk. So I grabbed all that stuff and I went down to the river, taught myself how to fly fish to a 32 count rhythm. And it sort of took off from there, and then once I walked out of the mountains, from my vision quest, I just realized, oh my God, I'm really, really good at this. And I do it way different than anybody else is doing it. And it seemed like fly fishing needed an update and a change. People have been doing it the exact same for 1,000 years or something like that. And it seemed like, well, 1,000 years ago, people didn't have indoor plumbing. It's probably time to, reinvent fly fishing. And so that's what I set out to do.
Gotcha. And I've seen some of those videos. It's funny you mentioned the story about, I guess you would call that stealing. Is that kind of how you got started, or would you call it something different?
I would call it finding stuff abandoned outside of a guy's tent at 2 a.m.
Oh, okay, because it sounds a little like what I used to do back when I was hanging around the wrong guys back in high school, where we used to run around to different coolers during the night in the campground and kind of have at whatever we felt we needed. Is that kind of the same sort of deal?
Right. No, well, you're talking about you hung out with the wrong guys, and when I talk about it, I talk about you hung out with me.
So do you think, what do you think is the best kind of characteristic of yourself, or what's the best and the worst of you?
The best of me is also the worst of me. I'm honest. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to pull punches. I'm not going to, sugarcoat anything. I'm going to be 100% honest. And sometimes that honesty is look, if I've got you out on the river and, and I'm teaching you how to fish, sometimes I don't feel like it. And so I'm going to be pretty honest about that. It's oh man, you're a pain in the ass. I don't feel like, really doing anything today. So I'll take a nap in the chair and sort of, you can, kind of fend for yourself. But I think honesty is something that's lacking in the world today, and transparency. And I'm a very honest and transparent person. You just may not like to hear the truth.
Gotcha. No, that's kind of what I've found is that, you just pretty much put it out there, whether it's a 9-year-old girl or, an old timer. Have you, as far as the people you've taken out on the river, have you taken out a few, or has it just been a couple of people over the years?
I go out with way more people than I come back with. I've noticed, a lot of people can't last, that sort of thing, because they're just, again, they're not up for hearing the reality of how bad they're casting, or the reality of, the fact that they should have brought their own lunch or something like that. When you go out fishing with me as your guide, reality is going to hit you in the face real fast. And if you can't handle that, then you're probably going to leave early.
Gotcha. And how early do you typically get started on when you pick up your guide or you pick up your client? How does that work?
I'll usually have them get down to the river about 8:30, and I'll swing in about 10.
Okay. So
there's no reason that they can't get down there, get a fire going if it's cold, get their boots and waders on, pick a fly, get their gear ready. If we're going to do a float, there's no reason they can't, really get the boat in the water, that sort of thing. I'm not there to do all that, right? I'm there to teach them how to fly fish and how to do it properly. And, any idiot can put on a pair of waders and boots. I don't need to be there to watch.
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe you can describe your YouTube channel. I guess you've got 17,000 people that follow you or something like that, or maybe it's 170,000, but how would you describe that to somebody who's never watched it?
I would just say start at the first video and then it go as long as you feel like going. Honestly, it's if you like the first one, you're going to probably like the second one and on from there. So it's not typical fly fishing videos you're going to watch there. I don't know that you would compare it to any other fly fishing videos. And so if you're looking for something different and something fun and funny and that doesn't take itself seriously in any way, shape, or form, then you should go check it out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I showed, it was pretty funny because I was over at my dad's place here this week, and I showed him one of your videos. I was trying to explain who you were and everything, and I showed it to him, you should have seen the look on his face. He's about 80, I think. He's right around that. And he pretty much couldn't figure out what was going on. And and I tried to explain how great it was, but he didn't get it. Do you find that older people don't quite get it, or what's the deal?
No, it's funny is I think the thing I'm most proud of with the videos, in all honesty, is the fact that I'll go and do live shows. And, like showing videos or, F3T screenings or, Orvis has me come out and speak at things, or Trout Unlimited groups around the country have me come out and speak. And honestly, the number of guys or women that are 60, 70 years old getting their picture taken with me is equal to like high school guys, Okay. And so it's a pretty cool thing. I mean, it at face value, I think it attracts a younger audience that is, just got a different kind of sense of humor and stuff like that. But honestly, I'm always surprised at the older guys, that really do get it and that really do enjoy it. There's nothing better than doing a live show where people are there that have no idea who I am. And so I always start my shows with who here knows who I am, and and people raise their hand, and then I say, okay, even better, who here has no idea who I am, and then people will raise their hand, and I'm like, all right, because I'm going to keep an eye on you people, because a lot of you may be heading for the exits.
That's right.
And it's fun to watch, like an older guy, or a woman, watch and suddenly there's a smile on their face. They suddenly get it, and they're like, oh my God, this is not what I expected to see at a Trout Unlimited banquet.
Gotcha. So it's basically the first impression isn't always the best takeaway from watching your stuff.
No, early on I did a show for a conservation group in Boise, Idaho, which is where I live. And it was early on, and I hadn't done a lot of live shows, and I went to the show just assuming people knew who I was, because I've got an ego that, dictates that I just assume everybody knows who I am. And so the beginning of the show, I came out, and the guy that introduced me didn't do a good job. And so I was yelling at him quite a bit and, tore him down and sort of, ripped into him there on stage. And it got really quiet and super uncomfortable. And I suddenly realized nobody in this room has a clue who I am.
Wow.
And so the first about 10 minutes was a room of, mostly honestly, like, 60 to 70-year-old guys that really hated me. About the time that I talked about how to survive a grizzly bear attack and grabbing a cub, they suddenly came around and they were clued. They were like, "Oh, okay, I get it. This guy's
that's awesome.
A little bit different. He's not really that big a jerk."
I love that. Yeah, I'll have to, if I can get the skills to put that together, I'll put in a couple clips of some of your grizzly, because that is a pretty funny hitting the bear and the chode, right? Is the start of that.
Paralyzer to the chode.
Paralyzer to the chode. Cool.
If you got a grizzly bear and you spot him and he's sort of checking you out, you want to make yourself real big, right? Because a grizzly bear is going to be less likely to attack something that's real big and scary. So you see a grizzly bear, the first thing you want to do, eye contact. Give it eye contact. Stare it down. Get big. Eye contact, get big. He starts charging, you charge right back. Now, if that's a male bear, you drop to one knee, bam! Paralyzer to the chode. That's gonna drop him. Right there, you get a paralyzer to the chode right in there, bam! That's gonna drop him. Now, a mama bear, she's got cubs, right? What do? Grab a cub. That's the first thing you want to do. If you run into a grizzly bear mama with her cubs in the wild, the first thing you do, you run over and you grab a cub. All right, you pick that thing up and you've got that cub. All right, because she's not going to attack a cub. She's not going to attack you when you got her cub. Okay, she's afraid for the cub. All right, she doesn't want to hurt the cub, so she's going to back off. And then what do you get? You're going to set that cub down.
So you mentioned conservation, and that's an interesting topic, because when I think of you, it seems to me like you maybe wouldn't be a conservationist. Can you talk about, what your background is there and what are you also an environmentalist?
Yeah, I would say I lean in that direction, for sure. I think that, the way I put it in a video once was, I think of the world as a giant, like, or the life experience as a long camping trip. And I think we should all leave the campgrounds having made it better than when we got there. Pack out what you pack in, sort of a concept. And, making these videos and fly fishing, the resources, the rivers, are something that, I want people 200 years, 300 years, however 100 years from now to be able to have the same experiences that I do. I think that, regardless of what some of my fans may or may not believe, I don't know. I think global warming is the single greatest problem that mankind is facing right now. And I think we need to do something about it. And for me, it's mostly because I live in a time and in a place that I'm incredibly blessed to live right now. I mean, the temperature of the world right now is pretty good. The resources and the rivers are pretty amazing. The technology that I get to live with is pretty amazing. And wouldn't I be a douche if I if I didn't want to pass that on to the next generation?
Yeah. Okay. So you're on the positive side of conservation. That makes more sense then. What do you think is, when you think about, I get these questions, well, I guess let's start with the 200 years thing. If you think of yourself when somebody in 100 or 200 years looks back on the body of work that you've put together, what would you like to them remember you for?
Oh, I'd like them to just remember me as being funny. Honestly, I mean, I make videos to give people a break and to give them something to laugh at and something to enjoy. And comedy is a tough thing because it doesn't always last. I mean, you can watch old television shows that really aren't that funny anymore. Comedy sort of changes and evolves. But there's some stuff that I would say that does sort of carry forward. I always think of the Barney Fife character from the Andy Griffith show. And that was a long time ago. And that is still one of the single greatest characters ever created for film or television, in my opinion. And so I would hope that, maybe, some of the funny things that I do and some of the comedy and my character, I hope that that's something that can last. It may not, but, if somebody looked back in a couple hundred years, ran across my videos, I would hope that they would think that those are pretty funny and fun to watch.
I was going to talk about you mentioned the comedy, and that's something. It is a struggle. It's not easy to be funny, and I've noted this at least one time on a past episode of myself, that it seems like when I get in with my buddies, some Davisms, they call them, and things like that just come out, and maybe that has to do with a little bit of alcohol consumption and stuff, but it seems like I struggle with that sometimes, of my persona online. What sort of tip might you give to somebody to let that other side of them, maybe their more natural side that they're like when they're around their friends, to come out?
I just try not to think about it. I mean, it's just like, you just don't think about it. Just be natural, be yourself, be who you are. I mean, some people are funny, some people aren't. Some people are, say super smart stuff, and some people say stupid things. Honestly, it's when we're out like shooting these videos, they're scripted and they're planned. We don't just go out and just turn on a camera. Well, okay, let me back up. Sometimes we just go out and turn on a camera. But it really is thought through to an extent. And then we build on that. So I'm a person that, you can turn on the camera and I'll just be like, I'm just going to talk about, holiday sales and getting 20% off a fly rod. And I kind of know where that's going, and unscripted, I can just start talking to a camera, or I can have a scene or a situation with somebody that I'm taking fishing, and I'll be like, okay, so in this scene, I'm just going to be talking about how much I hate Lewis and Clark. And I'm going to do a little bit of history of Lewis and Clark, and you just react to me, whatever's natural. Don't think about it. And by God, please don't try to be funny.
Yeah.
And so when people are just naturally themselves, it's it makes it more funny. And when people start trying, when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to be funny, either are or you aren't. It's like if I tried to be really smart right now and talk about math, I would fail miserably because I'm not. And so I think that's a thing. We've had situations where we're out shooting with people and I've been like, look, you just don't try to be funny. And then they try to be funny, and then we can't use any of the material because they're not.
Yeah. No, and I was thinking of I can't remember which video it was called. Maybe I think it was the bait one. The 3 bait guys, and those guys were, I guess, would you say they were trying to just be normal or trying to be funny, or what would you say about?
Well, they're actors, and so we don't always work with actors.
Gotcha.
And so they were. I mean, it was scripted. I mean, they said, I wrote everything they said I wrote.
Gotcha.
And so, but they can deliver it and they can deliver it well. By far the most popular video I've ever done are those.
Oh, right.
The teaching the bait fisher. And it's not even close.
No kidding. Those are your biggest ones.
By millions of views.
Lesson number 1, catch and release. Now, in fly fishing, what we typically do is we catch the fish and then we release the fish. Any questions so far?
Yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
I know it's a tough thing to sort of wrap your mind around, Aaron, but let me explain it like this. We catch the fish, and then we let the fish go.
Into a cooler?
No, back into the water.
On a stringer?
No, it's like this. You catch the fish, right? And then you carefully remove the fly from the fish's mouth, get a quick picture of yourself with it, and then you let the fish go back into the river.
Well, then how the hell you eat them?
We don't eat them. You don't eat them. You let them go.
Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, so that, you can come back maybe the next day and catch the fish again, or maybe you come back next week and catch the fish again, or that maybe gives somebody else a chance to come back and catch that fish.
So you catch the same fish over and over again?
Yeah.
So you're just into torturing fish? Is that it?
No. God, no.
You feel like a big man torturing fish?
No, it's not about torturing fish. It's about letting the fish live, right? So it can have a nice, healthy, happy life and get bigger.
Oh, fattening them up. Oh, you keep them when they're big and fat. It's better eating.
No, we don't even keep them when they're big.
Why the hell would you catch a fish and not keep it?
Because fly fishing is all about getting out here and enjoying yourself. All right? It's about the nature and surrounding yourself, and it calms the nerves, Kevin.
You know what calms my nerves? Barbecuing fish. Smashing a fish on a rock. Eating eyeballs.
Oh.
What's funny is that when I put that video out, I thought the funniest part of it was the beginning of it. I talk about being fly curious.
Yeah, that is funny.
Why you guys all, and I thought that was funny. I thought I should make fly curious t-shirts. I never did because I didn't.
Sort of get things started here. Why don't we kick it around the group and talk a little bit about why you choose to be here today. Darren, we'll start with you.
I didn't choose it. My wife made me be here. I'd rather be up on the lake trolling.
All right. Great. Kevin?
I don't know. I guess you could say I've always been a little fly curious.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm fly curious too.
Yeah, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, Aaron? I think we're all a little bit fly curious.
I'm not.
Look, here's the thing. We all started out as bait fishermen. I mean, when I was little, my dad used to take me out all the time. He was a master bait fisherman. When I turned 13, we went down there. We were fishing a little bit, and I look out in the river, and there's this gal. She's out there fly fishing. And, I started to get a little fly curious. Right? My dad said, hey, no son of mine is going to be a fly fisher. All right? And that night I went home and I told my mom, I said, hey, Mom, I think I'm a little bit fly curious. And she said, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't tell your father.
But I thought that was going to be like the big thing. But it was the catch and release argument that took off, and people I would see it everywhere. And I think that it crosses over from fly fishing into any other kind of fishing, right? And so that by surprise, you asked me how do you know something's going to be good or not? And the answer, of course, is I don't. I can, if I think it's funny, I think it's probably going to be good, but that took me by surprise. I had no idea that talking about catch and release, I thought it'd be funny, but I didn't realize it would equate to the most popular thing I ever made.
Yeah, no, I totally understand why though, because I have friends that aren't fly fishermen, and you get those questions like, the same, just what you guys covered, like, why you really released the fish? That's kind of weird.
What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point?
Exactly.
It's like, Yeah.
It's
a good question. It's a solid question.
Well,
I think that's also why it gets asked all the time, because in a way you kind of step back from it and you're like, yeah, no shit. Why are we doing this?
Exactly. Well, I got a couple of questions. Well, I guess one more, as far as, Hank Patterson, I mean, what is the hardest thing about being Hank Patterson?
Oh boy. I mean, it's pretty good. It's not a tough gig, to be Hank Patterson, to be honest with you. I mean, what I get to go around and fish with a ton of people and go on trips that, I wouldn't otherwise get to go on if the videos weren't popular. And so it's pretty good. I mean, you brought up earlier people that don't like me. Every now and then, I might be having, a bad day, and I get notifications when people comment on my stuff, and I'll have people really hate me and sort of attack what I'm doing. And I don't respond to that, and I don't respond to it because it's just throwing fuel on a fire. That's, I don't know what rating this podcast is. You can believe this, but I always tell people, it's like, you can't have a good conversation that starts with "fuck you." Yeah. And I feel like that's where a lot of those sort of people come from. And as much as I don't want to give that weight, every now and then, I had some guy, there's one of my favorite videos is where I'm teaching the little girl how to nymph fish. Yep. And, I had a guy like recently go on some rant about how I shouldn't be talking like that in front of a little girl and all this other stuff. And was very upset with me. And all I could think was, there's you can turn it off. You don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
Hey, you know the difference between fishing with a nymph and fishing with bait?
No.
Nothing. It's the same thing. Exact same garbage. It's poor parenting, really. Force your kid to sit out here and fish with a nymph. And hey, look, this is between us, all right? This is what we call inner circle, between you and me. Don't go telling your dad that I said this, all right? Just keep it between us. Don't go blabbing it. But hey, here's the reality. Your dad is a bad fly fisher. The man can't fish. He's an even worse role model to you. You like beer?
The real adventures of fly fishing expert Hank Patterson, your fly fishing guide.
Hi, I'm Hank Patterson, role model and world-renowned fly fishing expert and guide. Today we're going to be exploring the dark, seedy, murky, cloudy, disgusting underwater world of fishing with nymphs, also known as nymphing, or getting down and dirty, or as I like to call it, the exact opposite of why we all got into fly fishing in the first place. Now, for those of you that are new to fly fishing, nymphing can best be described as exactly like fishing with worms.
I mean, I don't expect everybody to like what I do because it's a subjective thing. Comedy is very subjective. So I don't expect people to like what I do, and I don't care if somebody says, "Oh man, I don't like that guy. I don't think he's funny. I think he's obnoxious. I think he's annoying." I think that's all fair to say about me if you don't like my stuff. Now, for you to say that guy is obnoxious, I hate him, it's bad, it's not good, is like, well, it's just your opinion, and you're sort of not only, tearing me down just for, trying to have fun, but also the people that like it. It's like none of us like to hear somebody. It's like, oh man, my favorite television show is, Kung Fu Panda. And then some guys like, treat you like you're an idiot for liking Kung Fu Panda. It's so that sort of stuff sort of annoys me. When people are like that, and it can, I'll admit it, it's like, I'm not doing anything that hurts anybody. So, I just don't get the anger that comes from some people. Or I made an Orvis video one time, and I had this guy write, I'm not kidding, it was like 3 paragraphs about how he was taking all of his Orvis stuff back, and he was never going to shop Orvis gear again. And how could they possibly, have anything to do with me and how I'm single-handedly ruining the sport of fly fishing. And it's just like
it's crazy,
dude, like, wow. I mean, just don't touch it, turn it off. And so anyway,
no, I hear you. I hear you. You mentioned the little girl video, and that was funny because that was actually the one I showed my dad, and he actually totally didn't. Well, he got it, but he didn't. It wasn't like his favorite thing, but he wasn't. Yeah, he didn't go crazy on it. He understood what you were doing. It just wasn't. Have you seen the
Peyton Manning teaching kids how to play football on Saturday Night Live sketch?
Yes.
It's brilliant. And I always think of it like when people hate it because I'm like, wait, Peyton Manning did a similar. His was actually much more over the top, I think. But that's the only thing I can compare it to. And I thought that sketch was genius. And so, but anyway, and people aren't going to get it and they're not going to like it. I think that, and I think that's fair. What I don't like is people deciding that their opinion of something is what it is. It is anything more than their opinion. You can say that you hate. I don't know why I'm talking about Kung Fu Panda, but I've never seen Kung Fu Panda in my life. But you know what I mean? You can say, I don't like Kung Fu Panda. It's when people start saying Kung Fu Panda is bad.
Right.
That I just sort of go, well, I mean, a million other people seem to really like it. So.
Yeah. I hear you. And we've mentioned a couple of the videos here, and I've watched some of them, but I'll provide links at wetflyswing.com/58. I'll have some show notes there for you. I wanted to get in because you touched on, by the way, the explicit thing is totally fine here. I just put a little E on the end of it, and I've had, I think I've done now 58 episodes, and I think out of them 5 have been explicit. So I tend to, even though I know that by putting the explicit, it takes me out of 200 million people, the potential to, because there's countries around the world that actually ban your show if it has any explicit language in it.
Oh, well.
At least, yeah. So, but I'm totally good with it because
I bleep all mine in video.
Oh, you do?
So I do.
Okay, well, maybe I should because I had that conversation with
bleep it out.
Well, and that was the conversation I had with April Vokey, is that we were like, well, you kind of want to hear the people, the way they really talk.
Yeah, you do. We bleep it out on all the Hank videos when we swear. The most egregious being the Yellowstone video.
So it's no wonder that 178,000 people will perish in Yellowstone this year, which is exactly why I've developed Hank Patterson's 6 simple steps to surviving Yellowstone National Park. Step 1, stay the away from bison. Step 2, when it comes to grizzly bears, you're going to want to stay the away. Step 3, if you see an elk, stay the away from it. Step 4, wolves. Now that's a whole different program. If you run into wolves, you want to kind of really be quiet when you stay the away. Step 5, have you ever had your arm ripped off of your body and then, eaten right in front of your face by a moose? You're going to, unless you stay the away from moose. Step 6, if you see a geyser, don't put your face in it. Step 7, do you know the difference between looking at grizzly bear cubs from inside your car and from outside your car? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Stay the inside your car. And you're going to want to stay on marked trails, take water, be hydrated, only hike with friends, and take bear spray. If you're one of the more than 200 million people that'll visit Yellowstone this year, remember to take the time to enjoy the beauty and wild, majestic splendor that Yellowstone National Park has to offer. But more than that, remember, stay the away from wild animals.
I think bleeps are funny. And honestly, I get a lot of people that say, oh man, I watch your videos with my son. And,
yeah, I know.
And I think, oh, are you fucking kidding me? No, I think, so we bleep it out. And so if you bleeped it out on this, it would be right in line with what a Hank episode would sound like as well.
Well, maybe I'll rethink my thinking there, but I did want to check on, because you mentioned, I was just got me thinking, Ellie Adler, who's going to be on, he's the producer of the Drakecast. And we got into a conversation about Euro nymphing. And not exactly Euro nymphing, but more the USA fly fishing team. What is your take? Have you ever had any connection to that? Do you have a take on, and maybe this is more from what Hank might say about the USA fly fishing team, like benefits, good or bad?
Pete Erickson, who I believe is still a part of it, and I don't follow it. I'll be honest. I don't know a lot about USA fly fishing. I have a USA fly fishing shirt and hat, and it's a super nice pullover actually that those guys gave me, and super good dudes. And Pete used to be on the team, and now he's like part of the. I don't know what the hell. I don't know how it all works. I'll be honest, but and he's a good friend and a good guy. I don't have a lot of a take on it because I just honestly don't follow it. I don't know much about it. I know they go and have competitions. The first time I ever heard about Euro nymphing was connected to Pete. Reece, my buddy who used to be in the videos, took a Euro nymphing class from Pete, and I was like, who the hell's Pete? And he's like, oh, he's he teaches at East Junior High in Boise, Idaho, and he's also a guide and part of the USA fly fishing team, and so I would make fun of Reece for having taken that class, and the idea of Euro nymphing just seemed too easy to make fun of, so I did, but. That being said, I also was very intrigued by Euro nymphing. I'm like, okay, what's this all about? And then all the tricks that they would use, they like take their leader and wrap it around a pencil because you're not allowed to use a bobber. So then they would just watch that squiggly that wrapping that around a pencil would create, and so that became like sort of their strike indicator. But no, I don't know. Team USA and stuff like that. I think that as long as they're having fun and they're respecting the resource and stuff like that, I don't have a problem with cool. it. And if they use it to sort of teach more people to fly fish and to respect the sport and to respect the rivers and stuff like that, then I'm all for it. Now if they start showing up all, decked out in the shirts with like 50 patches on it, I mean, like, some sort of a NASCAR race. I may have a fashion problem with it, but I still probably don't care much.
No, it's cool. And I only asked that because I did have such a strong response from, somebody who's definitely been around and, produces another podcast. And, but yeah, I just want to check with you on that.
What was that response?
Well, and I just found it was actually episodes. So I do these episodes. I think some people realize that, but I schedule out sometimes a month or two in advance. So I've already I'm talking to my past or my future self. I'm not even sure, but it's been completed. It's episode 54. So right now, you can just go to wetflyswing.com/54 and listen to the episode. And I lead with what he talked about there because it was so powerful. He basically said in a nutshell that, he thought it was kind of a bastardization of fly fishing because of the competitive. It was like it's really powerful. He had a very strong thing. And I brought up the point in the interview that we got to kind of build. It's like the politics. If you can't work together on things, then we're kind of like where we are right now with politics. So I don't know. Well,
it goes back to you can't start a good conversation with FU, and you can't, it's like if you're not willing to see the other side of it, and other people's points of view, and look, I'm not the fun police, you know what I mean, and because I decide that fly fishing means this to me, and this is how it should be done, and this is, I don't get the luxury of deciding that everybody should go about it exactly how I do, as long as, again, it's not destroying, the resource, and it's not, basically that. If they're doing it ethically, then I don't have a problem with it. People can go out and bet money on it for all I care. It's not for me. I'm not a competitive. First of all, I would lose, but I wouldn't do well in a competition like that, and I don't have any money to bet, so that would go south on me. But just because it's not for me, as long as it doesn't impede on my life, and as long as they're not destroying rivers and things like and killing a bunch of fish for no good reason, I don't. Again, I'm not the police of that. It's sort of like I get in that conversation about, like, I got a comment one time. I was doing an event near a river in Idaho, and a guy emailed me about it because he was, he had convinced himself that because I was speaking at a show the night before, and was telling people to come, and we're going to fish opening day. He was convinced that I was going to ruin the river, and people were going to fly in from all over the world. He had a much larger, he thought Hank was a much bigger draw, than it actually is. But what it made me think was, it's like, he was very upset that we would be going fishing on what he continuously called my river. I mean, you guys are going to come to my river, and you're going to do this to my river, and my river this, my river that. And I thought to myself, first of all, I'm looking at this guy. He messaged me on Facebook, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm 20 years older than this guy, and so his river I was fishing before he was born, and I just sort of thought about, the thing that is tough is that people have the right. Everybody has the right to go and fish public waters, and it's, if I'm from Idaho, that doesn't give me some special right over somebody from Montana coming and fishing public water in Idaho, as long as they do it right. And, so I'm always a person that is like, it's not about keeping people out or policing how people do things. It's just about, like, if you educate people on how to, treat each other, and if you're a good person and you're an honest person, you're a transparent person, and again, I just keep harping about respecting the resource and meaning the rivers and the fish and everything that surrounds rivers and fish. It's like people have the right to go do that, and so instead of trying to keep people from doing things, maybe a little bit more attention in just how to be better human beings would maybe sort of work towards a better end goal.
Yeah. Well, fly fishing kind of has had that stigma over the years as being, the whole elitist thing and all that. I think maybe that, I mean, that's basically what you play on on some of your videos. But I mean, do you feel like that's gone away a little bit now, or it's a little bit more of a come all kind of a community sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think more and more people, are open to the idea of anybody fishing. I mean, there's huge movements in getting more women into fishing and younger people into fishing, and some of that's probably driven by the commercial side of it. People that fly fishing companies certainly need larger demographics to do well. But I think that they're all doing it, not only because of that they depend on the commercial success of fly fishing, continuing to grow or at least not shrink. But I think they also do care about, like protecting, rivers, and they're environmentally conscious and stuff like that, because they recognize, well, if all that goes away, we also, our company can't survive without fish and rivers. And our company can't survive without clientele. And so, it's like, how do you grow your clientele, and how do you also at the same time, protect the rivers? And a lot of people, I'm the same. Look, I go to rivers around here, and Boise, Idaho is one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. And nowhere do I feel that more than on rivers that are close by. But again, so you go up to rivers that you go, oh man, wow. Holy moly, there's a car on every single corner. It's a bummer, but at the same time, I go, well, if they have the right to be here.
Yeah.
And so, me treating them poorly or saying, man, I've been coming up here for, 25 years now, here you come and blah, blah. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's that guy's first time there. He still has the right to go there and fish. And the way that I react to that and the way that I treat that person is probably a direct reflection on the type of angler that person's going to become.
Yeah. No, I was thinking it's, I've done a lot of steelhead fishing. We've talked about it, but that sort of mentality, you see that sometimes too, like trying to keep people out of your hole and run. And yeah, it kind of breeds probably not always the best day on the river. So have you ever had, as far as doing your video, and you mostly do videos out there, and have you ever had one where you just did and you pretty much threw the whole thing out?
Yep. Bass fishing. I did an entire bass fishing episode cut, ready to go, out the door, and I hated it. It just wasn't very funny to me. You know, I showed it to a couple of people, and they were like, "Oh, that's pretty funny. You should put it out." And I didn't. I didn't put it out.
So you just knew, you had that feeling.
It just wasn't funny enough. It was, the jokes were stupid, and it was just not very funny. And so, you know, I just made the decision. It's sort of like if you're if you're Sims, and if you made a pair of waders that really weren't very good, you wouldn't put them. They would never put them out.
No,
and that's their business, you know. Or if Orvis made a bad fly rod, they wouldn't release it, because that is their entire business. And so the videos, I look at it and go, you know, certainly some are funnier than others, and some are more produced, and some are just like me with a phone, and so it's not that, but it's like, but if I look at it and I go, man, that's just not. I mean, that's a complete waste of somebody's time. It's not funny. It's not that entertaining. Then I really don't want to put it out, because I feel like it just hurts the whole thing.
Yep.
You know, so, and so a lot of people are like, man, why don't you put out more videos? And the reality to that is, it's just, it takes a lot to make one. I know they don't look like it.
Yeah.
Honestly, it looks like somebody turned on a camera and I ranted, and some of them are. Don't get me wrong, but it does take a lot. I like to make sure that I'm going to go out and shoot something and make something that you know, it doesn't, you know, have to win an Oscar or anything, but as long as it's funny and entertaining, then I feel good about it. And if I don't have the time to make sure that it's going to be both of those things, then I just wait, and it's like, I'll make one in a couple of months when I have more time.
Yeah, gotcha. On, I guess, more of a serious note, you know, I've been thinking as I watched the videos, and I heard the story about, you know, your old sidekick Reece, and you know, how he passed away from cancer and things like that. Do you know, that whole process? You know, maybe you talk a little bit about like how the show changed without him, and how that whole thing, you know, how you dealt with all that, because I guess he was a pretty close friend.
Yeah, so he's one of my best friends from high school, and so I knew Reece for a really long time, and definitely, you know, my number one fishing buddy, and that's something that that's a much more difficult thing to replace than somebody being in videos. You know, I fished a lot alone when I first got into fly fishing. I'm not a terribly social person. I've become more social going and doing fly fishing shows and stuff like that. And the reason is because I meet like-minded people that enjoy, you know, I mean, fly fishing, you know, and again, regardless of any views on anything else in the world, politics, this, that, religion, it doesn't matter. If you both like fly fishing, there's some common ground. But I'm not a terribly social person, and so I fished a lot alone, and Reece got into fly fishing, and we'd known each other since high school, and so we started fishing more and more together, and he was working for Loon at the time, and so he could give me free floatant, and so he became a really, really good friend. But you know, so when we started making the videos, and really we meant to make one. There was no plan to make multiple videos. We were just trying to win a contest with the Drake magazine. They were doing a video thing about humor, and we won. But anyway, so we made that one, and then kept it going based on people were watching, and sponsor type people, you know, were sending us free stuff, and we're like, well, we should keep it going, because I just got an $800, you know, Scott fly rod. We should probably make another one, try to get some waders. So it took off, and we went and did some stuff, and it wasn't too, you know, when he had cancer when we started. We just thought it was in remission.
I see.
And unfortunately he had melanoma, and it had just gotten into his system.
Yeah. And
so he kind of kept some of that from me for a while. I think that he was concerned about how I would handle it. I'm not a guy that you want around in an emergency. I'm like, oh my God, panic.
Yeah. You
know, it's like, there's a bee. Oh shit. You know, but anyway, you know, once, you know, he finally, you know, sort of told me, it's like, here's the situation. The doctor basically told him, you should probably quit your job and go to Hawaii.
Wow.
And that's not a good thing to hear. But when he got sick, to the point where he clearly couldn't, continue to make the videos. I mean, the conversation that we had was, well, I could continue to make them. But you can't just suddenly have a new client. I mean, you can't try to replace that because
which was just the silent character.
Right. Yeah. The sort of Penn and Teller sort of thing. And so the process to get, was tough because at one point I had to go out and shoot something that he wasn't able to be in. And so the first thing that I did was I went and I made a feature length thing. It's like an 1.5 hour long film called Hank Patterson's Real Montana Adventure. And the reason I did that was Reece and me talked about it, and he came up with jokes and ideas for it, and he just was too sick to go do the trip. But we'd met some people, and he was like, he thought that was a really cool idea to go do that, and it was different. It wasn't an episode. It didn't rely on a client, and it was just it was a different thing to do with the Hank character, and so I went and did that, and then came back. And then when it came time to say, well, are we going to do episodes, like the shorter video stuff? And that first one was the one with the little girl, the nymph fishing one. And and that was all by design. And the design being that, clearly, Cassidy is her name. We were not replacing Reece with Cassidy. This was just another person that Hank had taken out fishing, and it's a little girl, and it's so far removed from just taking another guy or even an adult, woman fishing. It just seemed like the right thing, and but it was really tough. Reece came up with a lot of the jokes, and Reece knew a lot about fly fishing, and so the brainstorming about what the episodes would be, or the sort of off the cuff jokes that we would come up with. I mean, a lot of that, in the first episode, I go through all the flies, the Betty White nymph and the, the Purple Mountain Damsel Majesty. And that was just literally him standing off camera, me being on camera. And I would come up with 2 and he would shout 2 of them to me. And I would say the 2 that he had.
The menage a midge, was that a different?
Yeah. He was against that joke.
No kidding.
Reece was also like a pretty conservative guy, and so when I told him I wanted to do the menage a midge and the morgie, I think he was really on the fence with that joke. Now, after the joke went over really well, he got on board. But
I'll tell you what they were hitting on in here yesterday. Little midges, then like a mating midge. So what you got? You got like a midge, and then like tied on the same hook, you got another midge. Call that a mating midge, like they're making love. 2 midges making love. Right? If that's not working, you go a third midge. So you got a midge, making love to a midge, and then another midge. Call that a menage a midge. Yeah. You got 4 or 5 midges on there, you got a morgie.
What do you think was the biggest thing that, you learned just from knowing Reece?
Reece was that's hard. Reece was the last guy on the water. So you go fishing with guys and you get up there and they're all jacked up to, get their waders on and get their, rod ready and sprint for the water and get on. And Reece was just slow. And so I think what I learned from him was to just enjoy, the scenery and the friends and enjoy everything around fly fishing that has absolutely nothing to do with catching a fish.
Yeah, that's good. I got a little rapid fire round here if you have a few more minutes.
Sure.
And these are just kind of some general random things that I usually ask or occasionally ask. But if you had to say your top 2 flies that your kind of your go-to flies, what would those be?
Oh, blue wing olive and a midge.
Okay, and a midge. What about a resource or two, either a book, magazine, video, something that's kind of helped you, learn more about fly fishing? Anything that comes to mind besides your videos?
Oh, hell. Wow. I mean, it's all guides.
Oh, really?
Guides. It's really, I haven't read a lot of fly fishing books. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I don't.
So you've paid for a guide, or you not paid, or you just going to give it a guide?
Yeah. That's a benefit of Hank Patterson, is that I get to go out with guides. And, honestly, I've found the greatest, learning device for me has been fishing with guides, or just experienced, anglers. You learn knots, and you learn the river, and you learn sort of their thinking. And so honestly, it's just going out with different, men and women and learning from their experience.
Totally.
They can read the books, and then I get
right. That's right. That makes sense. What about your top, if you had to say a couple of tips, maybe that a guide, the best tips you heard, or the best tips that you that help you catch fish, or anything come to mind?
Oh, walk. I always people are always like, I can cast 100 feet. And I'm like, I can walk 50. Or, it's, oh my God, the river is super crowded. Not if you're willing to walk 2 miles.
Yep.
That's honestly, I think the thing that you learn the most is nothing like walking to solve problems in fly fishing.
Yep, for sure. What? So we talked a little bit about kind of ridiculous feedback. I think anything else that we missed that might surprise somebody about people that have watched your videos, feedback you've gotten?
No, I think I'm always surprised when people email and want to hire me to guide them. I always think, have you seen the videos? Have you watched the videos? Because you realize, right, that it's going to cost a lot of money and you're going to not do well. But no, I don't know. I think the most surprising, or maybe the best comments I get, you get the people think it's funny, people think it's a good time. But I've had guys like one in particular that ended up coming to Idaho and fishing with me, who emailed and said, he was in Iraq, or he had done, I said, oh shoot, now this is terrible that I'm not remembering. I think it was Iraq, but now I'm thinking it was Afghanistan. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He was deployed, and he's just like, your videos, man, on down days, we just love to watch your videos, and it gets me through. And his sister had told me that he had told her how much he loved watching my videos while he was deployed, and I said, well, give him my phone number, but don't tell him who he's calling. And he called me, and he was super excited, and he was like, oh my God, I love your videos. Nice. And so I invited him out to Idaho, and we took him on a float and had a great time. And so every now and then I get a comment from somebody who's sort of having a shitty day, or in a situation, a personal situation, or they're, deployed and sort of facing hard times, and comedy can be a device to sort of pull you out of a dark place. And so every now and then I get somebody that emails or texts me that, oh man, I watched your videos. I was having a really bad day, or a bad month, or a bad year. And man, they really give me a break from all that. And to me, that's shocking.
Yeah. No,
because I'm
cool.
like, wow. And so stuff like that, I think that's a surprising thing to have.
Yeah. Cool. What is, maybe briefly explain Real Recovery?
So Real Recovery is an organization that takes men with cancer on 3-day fly fishing retreats. And Reece was a participant in a Real Recovery retreat in Idaho. It's a national organization, I think 30 to 35 retreats all over the country. I'm on the national board of directors, and also one of the coordinators for the Idaho retreat. I've been doing that now for 7 years, and it's everything that fly fishing can be, which is you take these guys that need a break from the shit that they're dealing with in their battle with cancer, and you get them on a river, and all that goes away as their single minded attention turns to catching a fish. And it's a cool organization. And it's a support group situation where they come and they not only get to go fly fishing, but get an opportunity to have what we call the courageous conversations, which is, a group of guys sitting around in a circle talking about their experience and maybe getting to get some things off their chest or say some things that they've never been able to say, and sort of a healing process. And it's an organization I'm super proud to be a part of.
Yeah, sounds awesome. What is the? I just caught something on. Well, I guess this was on one of your past videos too. But the Camp Hagadaga, is that?
Camp Hagadaga.
Yeah. How do you say it?
Hagadaga.
Okay.
And so Hank Patterson's Camp Hagadaga, and it's spelled exactly like it sounds, HAWG, is a summer camp series. So it's a 7-part, I believe, 6 or 7-part summer camp series on Amazon Prime.
Oh.
So you can go and watch it for free if you have Amazon Prime. I guess it's not free. You have to pay for Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But it was just wanting to do something different, I mean, it's again, I don't like to make the exact same video over and over and over. It's like, well, what's something different we could do? And I was like, well, let's make a summer camp movie, because we found a summer camp that would let us come hang out there. And so we went for 10 days and shot this crazy summer camp, Hank taking over a summer camp series. And it's super fun. I think people would really enjoy it. It's not a lot of fly fishing. It kind of steps away from fly fishing a little bit, but it's fun, and there's a love interest, and it's really ridiculous. But if you have Amazon Prime, Hank Patterson's Camp Hagadaga, check it out.
All right, I'll check.
5-star review, please.
Yeah. I'll definitely check it out. So, how far ahead do you look? You're talking about planning and doing some different stuff. I always kind of ask the question: the next 6 to 12 months, what do you have going? But do you look further out on, how are you going to be doing this stuff kind of forever, or what's your plan?
No, I mean, everything runs its course. I'm sure that people grow tired of me, and they should. My family has. It's I don't know. I mean, I know that right now I've got this Alaska film that I'm going to release. It's about a 35-minute film, and I think I'm going to go do some live shows with it in Helena, Missoula, Boise, look into some other Bend, Oregon. And so I'm going to go do some live shows showing this Alaska film that I made last year that I think is really funny. Part of it played in last year's F3T, but there's a much longer version. So that's coming up in the spring, and then I'll just release it for people to watch. And so I'll have that coming out. I have a couple more, I have a new film going in this year's F3T film tour. And so that, I think, premieres in Bozeman in January, I believe the tour starts. And so that'll, be on tour all year. And, I don't know, outside of that, I'd like to do, 2 or 3 more episodes, next year, and just sort of keep it going as best I can. And, that's,
That's it. Cool. Well, I guess, I got a few more. I'd love to, dig into more of the Hank, kind of some of the good stuff you have going on. But I think I'll leave it there and maybe touch base with you next year sometime and see, if you still you got it going, and maybe have you back on. But if people want to find you, the best place is hankpatterson.com.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Travis, Hank, appreciate you. This started out as kind of like, well, do I talk to Hank? Do I talk to Travis? And I think it became a talk to Travis thing, which is actually, I think now that I think about it, is the way I kind of probably wanted to have it, because if we want to hear Hank, we can go out there and watch your stuff. But here in the background of, the person that created this stuff is pretty interesting, especially for me being somebody who's trying to create something, a resource and something that's enjoyable. It's appreciate you being out there, and hope to hear you for, a couple more years at least here.
Yeah, we'll see. Thanks, man.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye.
I want to just quickly remind you to please take the short survey I have going at wetflyswing.com/survey2. That's SURVEY and the number 2. Or click on the link in the show notes at the top of the page. That'll get you there. This will take less than 30 seconds. Just a few questions there, and will help me understand who's listening out there and help me serve you better. Thanks again. So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes with all the links we covered, just go to wetflyswing.com/58. And I want to just remind you on that, shout out to our patrons, Chris and Randy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Head over to wetflyswing.com/Patreon. That's Patreon, where $1 will give you some seriously big bonuses. Thanks again for stopping by to check out the show today. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon and hope to see you on the river or online.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.